What's up, guys? It's Damp. So, I'm gonna make a video today. Those of you who've been watching me on Twitch have known recently I've been putting a lot more time into Dead by Daylight after the recent changes that have happened in the game. So, what I wanted to do is I've hit just about 100 hours now, and like I tell you guys, if you've seen a lot of my other videos, once you hit 100 hours, I feel that I'm able to kind of speak to some of the things I wish I would have done differently, or some of the tips I feel that could help some newer players if you're just getting the game, during a winter sale, or I have a few people come in stream say, what about this, what about this, and they've asked some questions, so it's easier just to make a video. So here we go. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today about the perks and the blood web, what perks to focus on, what people or survivors to start with first. And then if this goes well, we'll do another video with the killers, but I want to get some more experience with them. So right now I've just about approached 100 hours, and I would have done a lot of things differently. And keep in mind that a lot of this advice is based off of what I would consider not necessarily meta, but close to the meta for a lot of the perks, because that's what's going to determine the order you play the characters in. So I'm going to go through that, but first, I just wanted to talk briefly about, so let's say you're new to the game, you're just getting into the game, and you're looking at these perks. They're overwhelming. You don't know what's good. You don't know what's not good. So we're going to cover that. And we're going to cover kind of the order you should obviously unlock them, which means you have to play specific people. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the shrine and how to use the shrine to benefit you the most, and when to pull the trigger on something in the shrine. These are all questions that I had that I wish I would have known better before I made my decisions that I did, so hopefully I'll save you guys some time. So in looking at this, let's start with perks in general and talk a little bit about teachable perks and what they are and what they do. So on the character info screen, you can hit F1 on any of the characters. You'll see what loads here are the teachable perks for each character. So you'll see everybody has 3. They're unique to that particular character. And by looking at each particular character, you can kind of see what their perk is going to be. I mean, I won't get into a lot of detail here. We'll cover these a little bit later on. But keep in mind that the only way to get each character's teachable perks is to either level them to a particular level. So in order to get David's, for example, right here, this is his level 30 teachable. You'd have to select this in your blood web at level 30, and then it'll show up in the other character's blood webs, meaning that it's no longer unique because you unlock the teachable. Until you unlock the teachable, it's unique to that character, and they can only use it. So this is the level 30 teachable, this is the level 35 teachable, and this is the level 40 teachable. And that stays true through each character. So later in the video, I'll kind of go through where I recommend you start based off level 30, 35. Is there 2 teachables that might be useful early on? So here's where we'll move to here. So ranking up in the game is something that can take some time, obviously, but we want to focus on specific characters that are going to be the most efficient for the best perk. So it's widely well known that the best perk in the game is self-care, and that comes from Claudette. So you'll see that I have that unlocked even though Claudette's level 11. So how did I do that? So I did that because it was available in the shrine. So if at any time self-care is available in the shrine, it's an absolute must-buy because it saves you from leveling Claudette to level 40 to get the teachable. You can just buy it in the shrine. So what's that mean? That means that once you get up to around 550 points here, and you can average between 5 to 10 in a game, depending on how long the game lasts. The longer it lasts, the more points you get. Once you get up to 550 points, you can utilize them in the shrine. Now, this shrine resets weekly, and if you already have the perk, or you're, let's say you're looking to get some easy blood points and you have most of the perks you want, you can spend it on, like you'll see Decisive Strike. I already have that one. I already own it. I can buy it again and get 200,000 points for your blood web. So just as an FYI, as we look through the shrine, I'll give you a list of perks later on that'll cover if these are in the shrine, they're probably worth buying. And they're a little more valuable if, like in Claudette's case, where if we look at her as a survivor, and you see her character info, self-care is all the way at level 40. So I completely avoid really having to play Claudette because I don't find value in the other two teachables. The same thing happened with Laurie. I bought the Halloween expansion. Laurie had Decisive Strike. That's one that I wanted. I now don't have to play her up until that level because I bought it in the shrine. So the shrine can be very useful in buying those perks that really can completely avoid a character altogether. Which for Claudette and her, those are two that I'd say are definitely worth buying, and they're probably high on the list. If self-care is ever there and you do not have it, buy it. It's a must-buy. But I'll give you a list of the others that could be, depending on your playstyle, maybe ones you want to choose from. So keep in mind the ranking of the perks we're going to speak to today and the teachables are... They're going to vary with patches, so if you're watching this video, you may want to just Google Survivor perk tier list, and you can probably see if they're still as good as what they are. But self-care is considered the best perk in the game. So we'll go ahead and look at self-care, and this is probably the easiest way to look at it. So self-care unlocks the ability to heal yourself without a healing item at 50% the normal healing speed, and increases the efficiency of a healing item self-heal by 10%. So basically what this means in English is if you are hurt, you have the ability to use your mouse button to heal yourself rather than having to find a med kit. So it's extremely, extremely valuable. It's not situational. You know, most of the games you're going to get hurt at some point, and it allows you to heal yourself. It's considered the best perk in the game. So that's where you want to start, no matter... If you're going to level Claudette to 40, if it's available in the shrine, if it's not available in the shrine, it's pretty much widely known that that's the best perk in the game. So that's where you want to go. That you want to typically start with her as a character. Now, as we look at some of the other perks that are really good, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the perks, kind of explain why I think I would have chose them in this order. And then I'll give you kind of a starting perk list. And we'll go through here and kind of talk through when you should buy them in the shrine. So, talking through the next perk that's really widely acknowledged as one of the best ones in the game is Iron Will. So, Iron Will says you're able to concentrate, enter a meditative-like state to numb some pain. Grunts of pain caused by injuries are reduced by 50% as long as you are staying still. So, I'll talk about how this is used. So, this is used if, especially early on, if you're taking a lot of damage, you haven't figured out the maps, you haven't figured out a lot of the, how to do the objectives, or you just find yourself just getting kind of wrecked as you go through the game. That's why Iron Will, I think, is acknowledged as one of the best perks in the game. A lot of killers hunt. They use certain perks that I won't say magnify, but kind of magnify your grunts of pain that make it easier for you to be found. So that's why this is important. Now, keep in mind, if you have self-care and you unlock this first, in my opinion, the value of Iron Will has dropped significantly because you're able to heal yourself. Now, it's, not an automatic, but that's why I feel the value of this isn't as good as what some people think it is. That's just my opinion. So we'll kind of look at some of the next ones. So that's really it for Jake. On Nia, I don't find hers very useful right now. Currently, I don't think she's one you'd want to play. Laurie is very similar to what we said about Claudette. If you can get this in the shrine, it's a really good buy. It's not one I would start off to pursue. So Decisive Strike is, you guys may have seen somebody as a killer pick somebody up and then almost immediately they get dropped. That's because someone used Decisive Strike. So it allows you to stab the killer in an attempt to escape. If you're the Obsession, once per match, when you're grabbed by the killer, you have to succeed a skill check to automatically escape the grasp, and you stun him for 3 seconds. So long and short of this is you're able to stun the killer if you hit the skill check. Now, the skill check is really hard to do, and this is not one I'd recommend until you're later on in the game. So you can save up and wait a few weeks for this to come in the shrine to buy it. I would not level Laurie to get it because in my opinion it's kind of hard to utilize, especially as you're new to the game. If you're a more advanced player, then you already know that it's worth getting. I don't rank it in the top tier. I don't use it on most of my characters, but it's probably like honorable mention for top tier perks. Ace, I don't have any of his that I feel are very good. Thingman, same thing. I don't think hers are very good. This is worth taking a look at. After performing a vault, break into a sprint at 150% of your normal running speed. But it's not as good, in my opinion, sprint burst or dead hard. So, David is one that I think that he has a lot of value in playing early on. So as we look at David, generally speaking, he's a newer character, obviously, but his dead hard is really well thought of right now, and I'll kind of explain why I think he's one of the first ones you would want to level. So he has this ability right here called We're Gonna Live Forever. Your few friends deserve the best protection. Each time you rescue or you take a hit to protect a survivor, gain 25% stackable bonus to all blood point gains up to a max of 50%. Bonus blood points are awarded post-trial. So if you are going to be somebody that rescues people from hooks, this can be useful in that you're going to get bonus blood points, which is very useful as a newer player and you're, a new player and you're trying to get as many blood points as you can. So this might not be your first few weeks you want to go after this, but maybe as you begin to understand the mechanics, you would want to climb his tree, because he has two that are worthwhile to get. You have We're Gonna Live Forever, which we just talked about, and then Dead Hard. So when you're injured, you tap into your adrenaline bank and dash forward to avoid damage. So you'll get a button press when you are injured. You can press the E key. When you press E, you're able to dash and you can avoid somebody swinging at you. This is typically used when somebody has the red light of the killer right behind you, and you can hit E knowing that the swing's coming, and then you'll dash quickly to avoid them swinging, which gives you a chance to get away. So during the dash, you avoid damage, causes exhaustion for 60 seconds, so you can't use it for another minute. So those are both. This isn't as widely respected because most high-level players don't need this. They don't use it anymore because they have better perks. But to level, I feel that these two are pretty good. Because going up through his level mean you can unlock two teachables that might be worthwhile as a newer player. Is No Mither we're not going to really get into. Quentin, we're going to skip because I don't think he has anything worthwhile. Bill definitely has one of the perks that's one of the best ones in the game right now, so I kind of want to talk to it because it's pretty complicated how you'd use it, and I'll explain where it benefits the most. So the perk that we're looking at is called Borrowed Time. So you're fueled by the unexpected energy when saving an ally within the killer's terror radius. So keep in mind you have to be within the killer's terror radius. Once per match, for 15 seconds after unhooking a survivor, any damage taken that would put you or the survivor into the dying state will instead trigger a bleed out timer. So rather than being knocked down to the ground, you get a timer. Taking any damage during the timer or reaching the end of the timer will put you into the dying state. So what the hell does that mean? What that means is you can run back in after the gates are powered, somebody's on the hook, grab them, and lead them to safety within that 15 seconds. That's basically what that means. So you got to be able to run. So Borrowed Time pairs really well with Dead Hard or Sprint Burst, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as well as We're Gonna Live Forever, because you're getting those additional points for rescuing somebody. So it pairs really well as like a point building or a grinding build if you're going to go and rescue people from the hook, which initially on you might not. But later in the game, it's really good for going back in and saving people. Because you'll find almost every time the gates are powered, somebody manages to find their way to a hook or they're already hooked. But keep in mind, once per match. So you probably want to save it towards the end. So anyway, as we go through Bill, that's his best perk that he has. The only one really that's worthwhile from a teachable standpoint. So Wade has a couple that are worth mentioning. Bond can be good in that you can see where some of the allies are, which can be helpful, especially as a new player. You can see who's going to rescue somebody, so you don't run all the way over there. You can see who's working on generators or who's trying to distract the killer. So to learn the mechanics of the game, that could be useful, but this should be one of the last ones, truthfully, that you unlock. But you may want to play as Dwight to get your bearings. Don't unlock it as a teachable. And leader can be good if you play in a group consistently where you guys can communicate maybe via Discord, where you're able to talk through where you're going to be, because people within an 8-meter range are going to get improvements to opening exit gates, searching, sabotaging, cleansing, repairing, healing, all those things. So that can be helpful in that unique situation. Again, not worth unlocking as a newer player if you're primarily playing solo. Avoid Dwight unless you're going to play in a group consistently. Meg is one, though, as a newer player, you're probably going to want to utilize, depending on your playstyle. So as we look at Meg, her teachables that are worth mentioning, Sprint Burst is widely known as top tier. So when starting to run, break into a sprint at 150% your normal running speed for a max of 3 seconds. Causes exhaustion for 60 seconds. So here's when that's really good. If you don't run much around the map, that's really good. But if you find yourself running from place to place quite often, she's going to be on exhaustion probably when you need to utilize that, because it's going to be on cooldown because you ran from place to place. So keep in mind, if you're using this, you really only want to use it when you're running to an exit zone, you're running away from a killer, you're doing things like that, because it will be on cooldown. Unlike David's, that pretty much triggers when you get injured and you're being chased, so that's when you're going to use it. So keep that in mind. Adrenaline is one that helps a lot of newer players because you tend to be injured more. You don't have the perk selection that you will later on. And it will instantly heal you, and then you're able to sprint for 5 seconds when the exit gates are powered. So that means as soon as that triggers up, here's the exit gates, you're running to the exit. If you're asleep, it's going to wake you up, and it ignores exhaustion. Now, it does cause exhaustion as soon as that triggers. So most of the time, those exit gates come on, and everybody is running right to them. So as a newer player, it can be better. Later on, I wouldn't recommend it. So she really only has one that you would consider unlocking, and I don't find this as valuable based off my playstyle as I do the David's Dead Hard. That's just my personal opinion. So really, we've pretty much gone through all the ones that are worthwhile, and anytime those perks are in the shrine of any of those we just covered, they're worth at least consideration. The rank I'd probably put them in is Self-Care is the best, the first one. Borrowed Time, especially if you're one of those people that's going to go back and heal somebody, is definitely top tier. Iron Will can be top tier, especially early on when you're a newer player. You have Dead Hard, Sprint Burst, one of those. Don't pick both, I would say, but pick one of them, one or the other, depending on your playstyle. And then Decisive Strike would be towards the latter half. So at any time, if you have Self-Care, Iron Will, Sprint Burst, Borrowed Time, Dead Hard, Decisive Strike, Adrenaline, and then maybe Leader, if you're in a group, that are in the shrine, those are worth considering, guys. So that's kind of your short list. My personal list is Self-Care is going to be the top one for sure. Probably Borrowed Time is going to be second. And then Dead Hard or Sprint Burst, and then Decisive Strike would be after that once you feel you're comfortable, using them. So if I was to give you an order of characters and how you want to level your people to be the most efficient, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to start with Claudette, and you're going to get her to Self-Care. That's going to be your first one. Get her to Self-Care. Once you're at Self-Care, stop. Don't play her anymore. So once you get Self-Care, you're going to go to David, and you're going to play David till 35. And the reason you're going to do that is it's going to get We're Going to Live Forever, which will give you additional blood points, because the fastest way to level is not only doing generators and being really good at them, but also rescuing people off hooks. That can give you a lot of experience once you get good at it. So that'll give you some additional blood points to give you some free XP points to help you level quicker. Then you're going to get Dead Hard and use that as your teachable at 35. After you get to 35, you're going to drop David, and then you're going to go to Bill. And you're going to play Bill until, 35. Because at 35, you're going to get Borrowed Time. Now, that doesn't mean you have to play these people. Keep in mind, if you have really good perks and you're comfortable with a certain character, just play them, but spend the points. Or you could play a killer and spend the points on just leveling Bill to 35. It doesn't mean you have to play them, even though I may have said that. So, once you get him to 35, you have a lot of different ways you can go. You could go, at that point, you should kind of understand the game as a whole. You could go to Laurie for Decisive Strike. You could go to Jake and get Iron Will. You could, I mean, there's even people who say you could get Iron Will early on, and it's helpful because you spend a lot of time as injured. And I completely agree with that. I think Claudette's still the first one, but Jake or David could be your second. The reason I chose David is because he has 2 perks versus Jake's 1, so it makes him more valuable to go up to that level. You also have Meg, which would give you Sprint Burst. So those are the ways you could go after you've gotten Claudette to 40, let's say David to 35, and you could go either Bill or Jake, or and then you're probably going to go to Meg if you got Jake first. It just depends on how you want to play it, and it's really flexible, and that's what makes this game good. Is there's a lot of different ways to play it. There's a lot of different theory crafting that and play styles that are attributed to the characters because they're so flexible once you get the teachable perks. So the next thing I want to cover, and it is probably one of the most common questions I had as a newer player, was where, you know, as a survivor, looking at my loadout, how do I know what to bring if I don't have anything good, and how do I know what to unlock? So one of the first things I really want to speak to, let me go to Meg, is what you want to try and do as you're leveling your blood web, is you really want to limit unlocking new perks, because by unlocking new perks, it adds to, they're more likely to show up in the tree later on. So we want to limit our teachables that we get and really select on a certain few, and we don't, that's why I say we don't want to go past David at 35, because then you're going to unlock another teachable at 40 that doesn't do you any good. It's just going to muddy up your tree, so to speak. So one of the best things to do is, even if you have a perk that's really not that good, level it up to level 3 and max it out versus unlocking another perk. Now, some people say that doesn't really matter, but eventually that perk, you're going to have the best version of it, and maybe it will get buffed. And that's kind of my line of thinking behind that. So as we look at loadouts, I'll just show you a couple of the perks that I feel as a newer player that can be really beneficial. So as a newer player, you're probably going to run more than you should. Lightweight is worthwhile, and it's not a teachable perk. So these will all be generic perks that anybody can get in their blood webs. So lightweight is pretty good because you're going to be running more than you should. It also is pretty good on somebody like Meg. Generally speaking, it's going to be pretty good with Meg. Kindred is one, as a newer player, I think can be very helpful. So on Jake, I have Kindred, and it basically unlocks potentials in one's aura reading ability. When you're on the hook, all survivors' auras are revealed to other survivors. So what that means is it will allow you to know who's rescuing somebody off the hook. Maybe you have to go there, maybe you don't. It also has the potential to, if the killer's within a very short range, they'll be revealed to you. So this can be helpful, especially if you're not on Discord with your group. So that's one to consider. Will Make It is another one to consider, and I'll kind of explain this. For each survivor you rescue from a hook, gain an additional 100% speed for increase for healing others, up to a maximum of 100% for 90 seconds. So this means you pull somebody off a hook and you heal them real quickly right away. This is a little more of an advanced perk, but by the time you have it, it's going to be worthwhile once you get to 35 or 40 for most characters. You'll find some value in it selectively if it's one of the only perks you have. And then Premonition and Spine Chill are worth talking about. So Spine Chill is get notified when the killer is looking in your direction and standing within 36 meters. So this will give you a head start if the killer's looking your way and you can get away, but it also increases the odds of skill checks. Alright, I should say, when Spine Chill is active, skill check trigger odds are increased by 10, so you're more likely to get those. Success zones reduced by 10, and when it's active, your repair, heal, and sabotage speeds are increased by 6. So there's pluses and minuses there. Again, it's a little more complex, not one I'd say that's great, but it's one probably worth taking that once you figure out how to use it, it can help you. And And then the last one we want to talk about is Premonition. So you get an auditory warning when looking in the direction of the killer. So even if you can't see him, if you're looking in their direction, and you'll see there it has the numbers and it's got a cooldown, but you get a general idea of where the killer is even if you're not within their terror radius. So it can be helpful. The rest of those are pretty selective, you know, like small game, that's not very good. The one escaping from traps isn't very good. I really don't think any of the other ones are worth mentioning at this time. I mean, if you guys find some that you think that really helped you when you were a newer player, put them in the comments below, and maybe we can add them to the list. But so if I was going to give you a build, and we'll kind of talk through that real quick on where you want to start and what you want to do as a survivor. What I would say is the best build that you could really run to help you as a newer player get some additional blood points and really learn the mechanics of the game as you're rescuing people from hooks is going to be self-care would be first, which will give you the ability to heal. Dead Hard and We're Going to Live Forever, because you're going to level him second. So that'll give you those additional blood points, and it'll give you the additional ability to kind of juke as they're trying to hit you during one of your chases. The other one is Borrowed Time. And Borrowed Time is there because you're going to go back in and maybe you're going to rescue one of the people, and it's going to allow you both to escape, and you're going to get those points. So the other one I wanted to add here is No One Left Behind, which is once the exit gates are powered, gain 75% more blood points for actions in the altruism category and perform them quicker. So this would be rescuing from hooks and healing. So if you had that combined with not all those perks, maybe you get rid of Dead Hard and you put in No One Left Behind, that gives you a really good build to go back in and heal people, or rather rescue them from the hook, and you guys both make it out. You get those bonus points, those points all stack. So I think that would be very helpful to you as a newer player in order to get some additional points. So hopefully this video was helpful to you guys. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching. I know this is a little longer than I normally do, but I thought it was really important to explain the whys behind it, and you could put this on or fall asleep or do whatever, maybe watch it while you're eating, and hopefully it helps you and gives you a better idea on what to work on. So if you liked it, let me know, and then I'll change to the killer, and I'll give you some perks for the killers, and it'll be a much shortened version since you've already seen kind of how they work. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.